As you venture past the initial bandit camp that you killed Edmund Shanks Doyle in the Arcovian foothills, you'll come across the first set of survivors affected by Darius Cronley's gang. A group of rovers on their nomadic pilgrimage, now blocked by a barricade set up by the bandits to trap and rob travelers. Greetings, stranger. A pleasure to meet you. Who doesn't begin a meeting with weapons? Can't say the same for the gang up the hill to the east. Violent and bloodthirsty murderers, all of them, everything we despise in this world, and now they've set up a barricade along the road to trap travelers such as ourselves. We've set up camp here while we decide what to do. The best course of action would be to blow that barricade, allowing our brothers and sisters of the road to travel in peace. However, we lack the means to do so. Say, you look like a capable sort, let's make a deal. Staunton Mine to the west of here is abandoned, but it may have some explosives. If you recover some dynamite and use it to destroy that wretched blockade, I can offer you some coin for your troubles. What do you say? Just as he suggested, you can gather dynamite from the mine, guarded by Cronley's lieutenant, Nicholas Balthazar, to blow that barrier up and continue into Older Covia, where you'll come find another rover camp just outside Cronley's hideout, but these rovers seem a little bit different than the last ones that you've encountered. This is where you'll find Quaid, the man that Mornay has sent you after, the ex-rover that has laid down his peaceful, non-violent way of life to seek revenge for all of the pain and suffering Darius and his gang has caused. Welcome to our camp. What brings you here? So he did make it across the river. He was one tough son of a slith, still has a bullet in him to prove it. If Mornay sent you, then he must think we can help each other out. Care to put those weapons of yours to use? Cronley's gang is well armed and experienced. We are not. This is not a battle we're going to win by running in there head on. We need to cripple them. This is where you come in. The outlaws have a series of forges, similar in making to the one behind me, scattered throughout the 4 hills. If you destroy them, Darius's men won't be able to rearm themselves. I understand that this may not be your problem, but I am willing to make it your problem for some iron. What do you say? He gives you a simple yet effective little quest to disarm the bandits, and also right next to Quaid you'll find Horace sitting in a fetal position. Look, I didn't know what I was getting into with Cronley until he had his hooks in me. Sure, I knew Cronley's reputation, but I figured, hey, I done some bad work myself. I just didn't count on how deep his darkness went. First I thought, this is a man with some vision, a leader who can cut a cushy life for us here by living fat off the spoils of rovers and the toil of lesser folk. Things just kept getting more twisted though. Cronley's closest men became fanatics, following his every command no matter how depraved or bizarre. They stuck these damned green crystals in their flesh and became freakishly strong. The things he ordered done the fault, sometimes just for sport. I couldn't take it no more. He made brutal examples of people who defected in the past. But I figured out a way, you see. I was captured. I didn't really defect. He'll see that, right? So even the bandits that signed up to be in Cronley's gang had no idea what they were signing up for. Even these people who are pretty downright evil by themselves can't even believe what Darius Cronley is doing right now. And before you head into his hideout, you can check out the small village, New Harbor, to the west of the rover camp. Most of the inhabitants in this town will be super rude to you, saying things like, I don't have anything to give you. If you want work, go talk to the overseer. If not, you'd best clear out of here. What do you want? Look, I don't mean to be rude, but we don't need another drifter hanging around causing trouble. It would be best if you just continued on your way. Except for Alicia, the overseer of the village. Unless you want to work, you should turn around and head back out of here. We have nothing to give and we don't need anyone stirring up trouble. What's happening is we're just trying to stay alive, and that means toiling for Cronley's gang. We're a ragtag collection of survivors who either wandered in here looking for protection, or were captured by Cronley's thugs and put to work. Cronley's men use us in whatever way they please, and it's a hard life, but this place is better than what we knew out there on the road. I'll endure anything to keep my daughter safe, and, at least for now, she's too young for Cronley's men to bother with. Silas over there makes sure that we stay in line and meet Cronley's quota. The waters have grown increasingly dangerous and we've struggled to catch enough fish, but we can properly fill our nets in time for tribute. We still have to gather scrap though. We cannot miss our quota. The last time that happened, Silas took one of the children back to the camp and we never saw her again. Please, if you truly want to help, gather the scrap for our tribute and deliver it to Silas. However bad things may seem for us, they can only get worse. Cronley's gang holds all the hills overlooking New Harbor, and they're sure to notice if Silas went missing. The retribution would be severe, so please, don't do anything stupid. We're the ones who will suffer for it. So this is less of a village and more of a slave camp run by the gang just to gather basic supplies. You can offer to take her to Devil's Crossing through a rift, but she replies with, "A strange offer, but we cannot leave." The refugees here have become like a family to one another. Some of the children are being held by Cronley's men as insurance against us leaving, and we know if any one of us left, those who remained would be punished for it. The bandits have stooped down so low to even kidnap these people's children as leverage to keep them working and not escaping. It's pretty dark stuff. Silas is just on the porch behind Alicia, overlooking the town, here to collect his tribute. "What you coming near me for? Get back to work." "New to the village, eh? This place here is under our protection. Mind your own business and scram." "Now you're talking my language. Look, I don't care for this joint, and a bit of coin sure might help raise a man's reputation up above, see? Give me 2,500 iron bits and I'll tell Darius this place ain't worth the trouble no more." So you can either give in to Silas, or you can do a much more violent option. A man might take that as a threat. "You ain't threatening me, are ya?" "You killed him. Good job, you're a hero. I'm sure the Overseer will be super happy to hear this." "How could you do this to us? When Silas doesn't report back, his gang will investigate. Please, just go. I pray that we survive the night." She's just overreacting, right? Well, if you leave your game instance and log back in, returning to New Harbor will prove her right. The village is now on fire, mostly destroyed. None of the inhabitants are anywhere to be found other than Alicia, a nearly charred corpse just outside her house, but she still has enough life in her to speak to you. This is all your fault. Someone above saw you kill Silas. They came shortly after you left. Please, they took the children to Cronley's hideout. Save them, find them a good home. Well, that sucks. At least you got an extra quest though, so the XP is worth the lives of these innocent people, right? Now it's time to head into the hideout and face the man himself. Just past the entrance, there are a few people locked up in cages right next to Boris's pit. You can set them free and have a chat with Frankie the Knife. "Hold on, we're on your side. Don't kill us." "The stuff going on out here? That's nothing compared to what's in the mine. Crowning himself an army of Ascended, and we want nothing to do with it. Of course, he don't take too kindly to people leaving his little cult. Got caught trying to leave. Now we're awaiting our turn with the pitmaster. He tears people apart like an animal. I don't want to be here when he gets bored with the guts splattering the arena walls. You let us go, we won't cause no trouble no more." Look, Cronley's gone off the deep end. Crazy with power from those green crystals. I've seen what he does with his inner circle. Takes them to a secret room where he plunges shards into their flesh. That's when I was sure I wanted out of this gig. I get it. You're here to end it. You're one of them good people. But I can help you. Let us go, and I'll tell you where he hides the big crystal. Then you can end this madness for good. There, I thought you were gonna kill us. Alright, so Cronley don't leave the mine much no more. He's too busy creating more of his Ascended. You're gonna have to get through them before you even see his big ugly mug. But if you somehow survive, check behind Cronley's bed. There's a gap in the wall that leads to his little hideout. That's where Cronley does all his twisted experiments. Wreck the place and nobody's gonna think twice about using those crystals again. Yet another set of people who didn't know exactly what they were signing up for when they joined in Cronley's gang. You must fight your way through the 4 hills to enter Cronley's hideout, the old mine now repurposed as a safe house for these bandits. Halfway through the hideout, you'll come across Thyrini blocking the way. If the name Thyrini sounds familiar to you, it's because he was one of the few survivors held up in the Devil's Crossing. But now, he looks very, very different. Well, looks like I get to try out my new powers today. Bourbon's gotta pay, no way around that. Nothing against you, not personally, but you're about the only person standing between Devil's Crossing and Darius's plans. I take you out, Darius bestows more of his magnificent power upon me, and Bourbon hangs. Maybe I'm making a deal with the devil here, but hell sure beats starving in Devil's Crossing. I was a prisoner in Devil's Crossing back when it still served as an actual prison. When the world went down the slith hole, I stayed there with Darius and his group. It was the safest place I can think of. Clearly, Bourbon thought the same. When he showed up with the rest of the survivors, things escalated quickly, but in the end, Bourbon had more firepower. Those prisoners that survived were driven out and set free. I hid when the fighting got ugly and bided my time. Came out later, looking just like another refugee. Of course, I kept myself busy. The water pump was my work, you know. After you restored the bridge, I returned to the boss. Things sure have changed since then. You must kill him to proceed, but this entire interaction can be avoided if you found the cultist orders in Burwitch Village and confronted Thyrini about it in Devil's Crossing. Brothers of the Blood. The ethereal presence in Burwitch grows stronger with each passing day. We are shifting our operations beyond the city limits where we may proceed with our plans undisturbed. Our focus now turns upon Devil's Crossing, where our newest agent, Thyrini, has successfully sabotaged their water pump. Soon, that irksome group will be forced to flee their sanctuary, and they shall be at our mercy. Ready yourselves, brothers. Soon, we shall drink of their blood. Salazar, Blade of Chthon. He was a member of the Cult of Chthon and an accomplice to Darius Cronley, while pretending to be just a refugee in Devil's Crossing. It seems like Cronley's immediate promise of power from the ethereal crystals now implanted on his body was enough for Thyrini to rejoin him. Deeper into the hideout, there are 2 notes that you can find, randomly dropped by killing the gang members. Let's start with this one, the bloodstained note. 3rd time this pale-skinned duo in robes, a man and a woman, has shown up at the hideout. The boss says to let them through, so I let them through. The whole camp's on edge whenever these 2 show up. Maybe it's their eyes. That unsettling green glow reminds me of the dead ones. Or maybe I'm just agitated because the crystals Cronley stuck in my back seem to vibrate whenever the duo is around, like they're ready to rip loose. The voices I hear when I sleep are already enough to make a man tense. The others told me they hear them too, but none of us can remember what the whispers say. Boss says it will pass though, that it's just a part of ascending into the ranks of his glorious army. This new dawn of his had damn better be worth it. This pale-skinned duo in robes are obviously possessed by ethereals, most likely much higher ranking in their political ladder than the usual husks that you have been fighting. Maybe even higher than the one possessing Warden Craig, since they seem to have a deal with Darius Cronley, which must be where he's getting all these ethereal crystals that he can implant onto his goons. Speaking of crystal implanted goons, let's read the Bruiser Romanov's note. The boss says I done good when I smashed them Rovers skulls for hiding their food. Says I'm next in line to join him and his brothers in the new dawn. I've seen what those boys can do with them green crystals in their flesh. They could tear a man in half like a loaf of bread. But I heard them screaming too when Cronley put the crystals in. Sounded worse than the last time he got his hands on a rover woman. But a little pain's not about to turn me into some knife-stabbing wimp. Nobody's gonna outmuscle the Bruiser around here. So I can see why people were defecting out of this gang even if they were super evil themselves. It sounded like a bit of a madhouse, but Romanov seemed to be very into it. Cross this bridge to enter Darius Cronley's office, where you'll meet the man himself, now looking to be much more ethereal than he is a human, with glowing green eyes and a whole bunch of crystals planted on his back. The first time you encounter Cronley, you're able to chat with him before combat begins.
So Bourbon's dog has come barking. You should give up trying to act the savior. It doesn't suit you. Humanity is already doomed and a new power is rising. Get on board like I did or go extinct. Well, that's not quite true. The Ethereals will need new vessels, so I'm sure they'll keep some domesticated humans around to breed like livestock. You know, I heard you were taken when they found you. I bet your offspring would make good vessels. Isn't it obvious? Devil's Crossing may be a prison, but it's like a fortress and controls the roads to Burwitch and to the west. The Ethereals wanted to capture it, and you know, as much as I wanted out of that place, I think I've grown nostalgic for it. This time, I get to play Warden, and I intend to have some fun just like old Krieg did. Tell you what, give me Devil's Crossing and I'll put in a word for you. Maybe get the Ethereals to keep you around as a breeder. Either that, or I'm happy to do things the painful way. Painful for you, that is. What kind of milksop did Bourbon send after me? Don't you know the name Darius Cronley? Before the Ethereals showed up, I was the biggest public menace in these parts. My name inspired nightmares in children, makes men tread quickly past dark alleys. I'll take you apart slow, piece by piece, like I did to so many victims before. I must say, I'm really going to relish this.
We already knew that the gang wanted to take over the Devil's Crossing for a while now, but we learned that the reason for this isn't just because of Cronley's thirst for revenge, it's also just ethereal orders. This entire gang is being run by ethereals. They promise the amazing power from their crystals for the gang's allegiance, so they can just keep on being jerks to the last resisting humans, all in the name of the ethereals to bring on the end of the world so they can just own everything. You can ask Cronley what he's doing with the children that he captured from New Harbor.
Them? Just a little project of mine. It will be exquisite.
That's pretty vague. Maybe we'll learn a little bit more once we rescue these children. You can also ask him where Elsa is, the girl that Mornay sent you to find.
Mornay's little sweet thing? I pity she escaped. Oh, the delicious things I could have done with such tender flesh. She fled west, but she won't get far. Half-troll tribes hold Smuggler's Pass, and with nowhere to run, my men will soon retrieve her.
There's no more dialogue after that, so now it is time to fight. Just like the defectors in the Four Hills said, there is a not so well hidden room behind Cronley's bed, housing a gigantic aether crystal and 2 notes from Darius Cronley's journal entries. When the attack stopped and the ethereals sent in their envoys, they knew they had us by the ball. All they had to do was squeeze and any other man would have sung them a tune worthy of the Irulan opera. But they've never contended with Darius Cronley. They came, 2 of them, humans in robes. Only thing that gave them away was their eyes. The eyes glowed that sickly aether green. They offered me a chance to surrender, a chance to live out our lives as vessels and breeders for their growing army. I sent their heads back on spikes. See if those spirits survive that. But when they came back again, with new terms, well, then they were speaking my language. I was to be a piece in their grand design, a master of my very own army of aether-empowered humans. All I had to do was pledge myself to their cause, and to plant one of their crystals within the mine. The rest, they said, would be revealed in time. The ethereals tried their usual intimidation on Darius to get him to submit, but it seemed like they were actually much more afraid of him than he was afraid of them, so they offered him a much better deal than any other human could get. The ethereals left. They're headed north to Homestead in order to squash the human resistance orchestrated by the damned Black Legion. I've been left to my own devices, but for one caveat, eradicate Devil's Crossing. There are so many ways I could squeeze the life out of Bourbon, but unfortunately I'll have to settle for just one. Perhaps after I behead his mangled corpse, I'll shove him full of aether shards and bring him back as a personal servant. Then I can kill him over and over and over again. But first, I must finish my glorious army. Another batch of aspiring followers is due to arrive within the hour. They have no idea what suffering and agony is in store for them. I sometimes wish that more would die during the procedure. The failed ones make for such entertaining playthings, their screams echoing through the tunnels. Perhaps today, I will have to slit one's throat just for good fun. And as we expected, he's just a giant psychopath, so it's a pretty good thing that he's dead now. Good job. You can interact with the giant crystal in the hidden room to either completely destroy it, or keep some of it for yourself. This cluster of aether crystal appears to be the source of the corruption. Its destruction would see an end to Cronley's mad designs. You hear faint whispers in your head as you approach it, as if a multitude of voices were calling out to you from within the shard. This choice really has no impact on the story. You can get some extra aether clusters if you choose to keep some, but that's really about it. Now exiting Cronley's office, you'll find some cages with the children that you were sent to save in them. You don't get any information on what Darius was doing to them, other than Oscar Jr. saying that Cronley said he was going to experiment on them, so it seems like you were able to save them before anything terrible happened, thank God. You can send them to Devil's Crossing where they'll stay with Constance, safe and sound. While you're in Devil's Crossing, you can also report your mission back to Mornay.
Well, is it finished? The world is a little safer today with that monster dead. Now what of Elsa? You must have seen something. Damnation! Perhaps she escaped and ran for Homestead. Or maybe they sold her. I have to go back out there. If there is any chance that Elsa still lives.
So what happened to Elsa? You can actually find her in the barren highlands just outside the Smuggler's Pass, where the half-troll tribe Mistborns rule, just like Darius Cronley said. You don't smell like one of Cronley's gang? Are you another from Devil's Crossing? I can only assume you mean Mornay. Idiot nearly got me killed out there in Old Darkovia. Bandits got us in the night, drawn to his damned fire. They tied me up and dragged me back towards their camp, probably to share me with the rest of the gang. Shame for them. They weren't very good at tying knots. I slit their throats while they slept, and made off on my own. Well, I thought he was dead, but knowing he's back in Devil's Crossing makes me even less inclined to return. He's not a bad man, but I can't stand to have him fawning all over me like a replacement for his dead wife. He believed there is some great romance between us and refuses to accept that I have no such feelings. It might be better that he believes me dead. The last thing I need is a lovesick fool pursuing me through this hellish world. You can ask her what she meant by another from Devil's Crossing. I encountered another survivor from Devil's Crossing just recently who convinced me that Homestead was a place where I could help make a difference. I never got a name, but he cooked me a fine meal and told many remarkable stories about political intrigue in the time of the Empire. Then, he set off by himself. He just got up in the dark of the night and told me he was heading on, as he had urgent business in Homestead. I warned him that it would be wise to wait while the trolls and ethereals fought it out in Smuggler's Pass, but he said that he could just pass unseen between them if he was alone. It sounds crazy to me, but he was a likable fellow, and I hope he fared better than I expected. This man that she's referring to is almost definitely Ulgrim, a man that you can save and bring to Devil's Crossing, who says he is a chef, but there is so much more to his story that he is hiding, and he is a very interesting character that I'll probably be looking into by himself at one point. You do have the choice to return to Devil's Crossing and tell Mornay what happened to Elsa.
There are few people I hold in high regard, and I count you and Bourbon among them. You have no idea how relieved this makes me. I must go find her. You're probably right. I just wanted to patch things up. Elsa's a lot like my wife, you know, before the ethereals got her. At least I know Elsa's safe.
And that marks the end of this story regarding Darius Cronley and his crimes against humanity. There will always be people dark and twisted enough to rise up and start another bandit gang. But at least for now, the people of Devil's Crossing can sleep safely knowing that Darius Cronley and his army of ascended individuals are now gone.